I'm not sure that the fine is the big deal. I mean, the share price has been falling significantly over an extended period of time now. The fine was just one of the elements in this journey. So I think, yes, they will. If you look at most of the history of these fines, the announcement versus the actual payment, they probably won't pay as much as people as at first announced, but it probably might be a little bit higher than the market was hoping for. So, maybe it comes in at 6 or 7 billion or so, maybe even up to 8 billion. But that's not the key issue, I think. And I think, yes, the share price might bounce, but the problems are endemic within Deutsche Bank, and it's got to play out in some other way.
And so what is the key problem? What is the endemic risk here?
The key problem is the fact that, A, they have an enormous derivative book. Now, many of these are netted off, which means the longs and shorts are offset versus each other. But the problem is the size of it is so big, it's very difficult to unwind, it's difficult to get rid of. People don't understand what the risk is with that. Meanwhile, there's a bigger problem, and that is the problem of negative rates in Europe, a very, very flattened yield curve in Europe, and then rising LIBOR rates, which is causing a starvation of funding for many of these banks. So Deutsche Bank has a number of issues at play. Its business model, the investment banking businesses, are generally shrinking around the world too. So it's kind of the epicenter of a storm of a number of things.
And so the fact that negative rates clearly is affecting all banks in Europe, do you expect the turmoil that has faced Deutsche Bank this year to start to infect other European banks too?
Well, I think it has been, but nobody's noticed. I mean, I keep a close eye on the Spanish banks. I lived in Spain for 10 years. And many of the smaller Spanish banks have been in free fall, and many are all-time lows now, whether it's Banco Sabadell or Banco Popular. But then also big banks like Santander look problematic. And it's all from the same issues. Basically, a lot of the bad loans in Europe, whether it's Italy, whether it's Spain, didn't go away. There's the problem now of how banks fund themselves, and then there's the problem of the yield curve. So the whole thing is grinding the whole sector lower over time, and it's including the UK banks as well. So it's not just a European issue, it's also a UK issue.
And one factor that investors, I suppose, take some heart on stateside is that you'd think, well, they're not going to let these banks go bust, because we've all seen what happened when the US authorities let Lehman go bust. How difficult, though, is it to have a state bailout in European banking space, given the various EU laws against it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, is Germany set itself up to stop any of the taxpayers having to pay for bank bailouts. So it set up this bail-in mechanism. Now, the problem is Deutsche Bank is too big to bail in. I mean, you can't take all the depositors' money at Deutsche Bank. So it's between a rock and a hard place, and Merkel has got to deal with this ahead of the election if she can. So it's really complicated, because if they do decide to bail it out, then the Cypriots, the Greeks, and everybody else, and the Italians who've been forced not to be able to bail out their banks, are going to go and complain to the EU, and there's a whole load of lawsuits that could come, or the Greeks themselves, or the Cypriots, etc., could start to get really, really angry about what's right for them versus what's right for Germany. So it's a political hot potato as well.
So, Raoul, just quickly to finish, what's the chances of a sweeping crisis across Europe to the scale of the 2010 Eurozone crisis or the Greek crisis?
Well, crises only come in a recession. I think Europe's heading towards a recession. The US is also flirting with a recession. So I think there is a probability that that's the case. Firstly, we need to see how they deal with Deutsche Bank. My guess is Deutsche Bank's not going to be the one that causes the problem. It'll be somewhere else, because everybody's focused on Deutsche Bank, and the state will have to do something somehow. But I think, yes, look, there's a problem still within the European banking system, and a crisis still awaits in the next recession.
Hey, CNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Here you're going to find videos packed with all of the information that you need to be smarter about your finances. You can subscribe by clicking right here, and click on all the videos around me or the eye right here to watch the latest from CNBC. Thanks for watching.